I would like to welcome everyone to the Peoria Riverfront Museum's Art Club. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Holly Johnson, and I'm excited to be hosting a local artist, Bob Doucette, for today's Art Club presentation. This Zoom presentation will be recorded and uploaded to the museum's YouTube account and Facebook following the presentation. If you do not want your video or image to be visible, feel free to stop your video from view. I've muted everyone to begin with, and please keep your video muted until the end of the presentation. At the end of the presentation, Bob invites questions and comments, so please feel free to unmute yourself either temporarily using the spacebar on your keyboard or unmute using the button at the top. Alternatively, if you don't wish to talk, feel free to ask a question in the comment section, and I'll ask the question for you. Without further ado, a big welcome to Bob Doucette.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. I see my sister-in-law. So anyways, I would like to say thank you to the Riverfront Museum and especially Heather and Holly for setting me all up to do this. I go on talking forever, so I'm gonna try and keep this under control. I have a slideshow, and that way it'll keep me on mark. And then if you have any questions or if I forget anything, you can be sure and ask me at the end. All right. Oops, again, I did that. There you go. This is my current studio. So it's my happy place, my place of meditation. And anyways, I spend a lot of time there, and it's my favorite studio here in Peoria. Today I'm going to talk about how I developed my personal style and my online presence. And also I'm going to discuss my process. And also to start with, I'm going to talk about briefly how I got started as an artist. When I was young, my dad wanted somebody in my family to take on the mantle as artist. It was something he would have loved to have done for himself, but felt like he needed to get a real job and be a good parent. So he encouraged all of us. I, being the youngest of 5, was the one who wanted to take it all away. And I've had a varied career working in puppetry, theater, film, and TV. And I was an animation director for over 20 years. And I've designed characters, I've done backgrounds, I've done a little bit of everything. I've written scripts, I've written songs, but I always wanted to be a gallery artist. When I started painting at age 8, I knew that that was the thing that I loved the most, and I think mostly because of the color. And I worked at it behind the scenes for years. And then finally in 2008, I said, I need to, before I get any older, I need to start pursuing my dream. So I started working while I was still an animation director. I spent all my free time painting and trying to get ready to be in galleries. So when I first started, it was because there was this introduction to me of a movement in California that was very illustration based in galleries. And it's not something you'd find in a New York gallery, because at that time they were still very much interested in abstract art and non-objective art and basically more conceptual art. But something popped up in the California scene that was very creative and inspired by pop imagery and a lot of more colorful things that I related to. So the movement known as either lowbrow or pop surrealism, not to be confused with pop or surrealism, but pop surrealism, it gets the name surrealism just because it can be almost any kind of world that is created in these images, and pop because it does lend itself to stealing from different pop images, popular images, as well as the art history. So when I first started, one of my influences was working in cartoons. For some reason, my computer's gonna be crazy. So I I had been working in cartoons for years, and that was kind of my regular thing that I knew well, was how to design a world, how to design backgrounds, and how to design characters. So yeah, I'm going to show you at the very beginning, I very strongly was influenced by all my cartoon idols. So here's one of my first ones. I don't know why my computer keeps doing that. Hold on a sec. There. This is based on Dr. Seuss, and it was an ABC book that, and this was Z, Zizzer Zazzer Zuzz. This is also from Dr. Seuss. And so you can see it's got a little bit of a modern take on an old classic. And I called that one, Who's That Cat? This one is based on Popeye. And you can see Popeye and Olive Oyl and Wimpy and Brutus and all the regular cast from the Popeye cartoons. But I used kind of the look of the old ashcan painters from the early part of the century that were into the gritty kind of New York scene. Anyways, I did a whole series of these, and I called it new old tunes for my new depression. And okay, so this is very Depression era. It's based on a German expressionist painting of basically three prostitutes. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if the Warner Brothers cartoon characters were three old whores out in front of a building trying to sell their wares? Especially since Bugs Bunny is already a drag queen. I thought that would be a perfect place for him. So, okay, you might recognize those characters. This is another one. Sorry, it's a little X-rated. This is also based on a famous German expressionist painting, and these are all Disney characters doing their best. And it's called Why Buy the Cow? This was my tribute to Popeye and Olive Oyl, called Disco Olive and Disco Popeye. Okay, so for everything kind of overlaps, and it's hard to say that everything happened one after another, but I did try to organize this in a linear way. So what came after that was I had to kind of figure out where I really wanted to go, because I did not want to spend all my time just recreating other people's characters. And I figured, since I had spent a quarter of my life, if not more, designing characters and designing cartoon worlds, I would treat my paintings like a cartoon world. So I named it Toboland, for the very simple reason that Tobo is my email address, to Bob or Tom and Bob, Tom being my husband. So welcome to the world of Toboland. That became my place. And when I first started painting, I sat down and wrote a manifesto of Toboland, and basically what you would see and what you would not see in Toboland. So Toboland is a place that can take place in any era. Any form of costume is available and acceptable, and people can be cartoons, or they can be animals, and anything you name. It's kind of an anything goes kind of place. But I think you'll see that as I start going through this. So the first one here, this is, and this was after developing this for a while. This is called Welcome to Toboland. And I started to establish a bunch of different characters that I like to paint and used over and over again. And I was on vacation in Florida with my brother and his wife, who's right there. And when I was there, we were walking through the villages in Florida. And the villages, if you haven't been there, often are designed to look like different things. And there was one village that was very Victoriana, and I liked the look of that. And my brother just turned to me and he said, well, what would Toboland look like if it was a village? And I said, oh, very interesting. And since my brother loves architecture, I figured that that would be something he would like. And so he commissioned me to do a painting of what this would look like. And both he and I spent a lot of time in Rhode Island because we both went to college there. And this actually is a little bit like one of the streets in Providence that was on a hill and had a very crooked angle to it, and you could see the city behind it, and there were these old Victorian buildings in the front. So I wanted to take that, but then I wanted to push it further and have futuristic, so that's why I have the floating car and all kinds of floating vehicles going on. But again, it's a little, I call it steampunk light because it's not traditional steampunk, it's not always Victoriana, but it's a mixture of old-timey of a lot of different eras. So anyways, there's a lot of stuff going in there, and a lot of the names of the buildings are directly related to my brother and his wife. All right, oops, again, click. This is Tobolano at the beach, and I call it the public beach. And you can see all the characters of Tobolano. Right in the center is the artist who came to the beach first thing in the morning when no one was there so he could paint his landscape, and then within 10 minutes he couldn't see the beach anymore. This is the darker side of Tobolano. This is called Throng, and this is a rainy day in the city. And as you can see, I've got some Tobolano bags there. I wanted to kind of make it feel like it was just a message about consumerism in Tobolano to make a complete world and to get the feeling for it. So there's a dreary day, and if you look through the characters, a lot of these will come up again in other paintings. Here's a later one, and this one was called Cat Among Pigeons. And if you look right in the middle bottom, right above the dog, is the Grim Reaper. Grim Reaper becomes a very important image in my paintings, so just keep him in mind there. There he is. So that's, again, the city. And this is more of the happier side, and this is called Casual Friday Already. And basically it's my sense of humor of people walking around Tobolano half-dressed. And now here, as I was saying, at one point I actually was thinking of doing all characters as animals, because I love animals so much. And I think that if you ever see a cat, it's usually very much relating to my point of view of the world, because I'm a cat person, and I can just put so much emotion into their faces because I have a bond with them. And this is called Mitzi. This is called Pete the pup, and he's a sad little pup. And this is Shrinking Violet, and she's a very shy bunny. All the kind of emotions I can relate to personally. This is called Froggy Goes A-Courtin', and this is based on, this is me kind of making a mention of a historical painting, because this is based on a Van Eyck painting of the man in the red turban. I thought it would be funny to have Frog in red turban. Unfortunately, there's a big movement of people painting animals in historical costumes, so I kind of stopped doing that. Unless it like fits what I'm doing, I don't do it as much because they seem just readily available from everyone else. This one's called Dog Days of Summer. And I just like this idea of this rabbit being mistaken for a dog and feeling very confused and worried what's going to happen. And this one is called, I know what it's called, Who, What, Where, or When. And I kind of see this, I use the image of clocks a lot because I like the idea of like stopping time, time going by, how time affects us. I think that it's a fascinating subject. And in this one, this character, the owl, is a big know-it-all. He's a big blustery kind of character. Kind of, you know, I would say like W.C. Fields, or if you remember the rooster from the Warner Brothers cartoons, who's always I say, and he's flicking his cigar ashes on the poor little bird who just wants to ask questions, and he doesn't have time for it. Then I did a series of children, and now you got to understand, none of these series were like direct; they were spread out over time. But over time, I did a series of children called the Tiny Tots of Tobolano. And this one is called Eudora the Witch. Again, it's got the cats in the background because I love cats, and the owl, another animal I really love. So these became very popular, and I did a lot of prints of my children. And here's the first one I did, was called Scary Mary, and she's a little bit of a fortune teller, Scary Mary. And that is my cat Ginger, looking miserable, being held by her. Because Ginger does not like being held. So anyways, as I was doing these things, I discovered certain characters were more popular than other. And a more recent one of my children characters was Vampirina. And this is Vampirina, this little vampire girl who's got these pet bats. And this is the second one I did of her, but became very popular, and I kept getting demand for commissions. So I had done 2 paintings of her, and then I got commissioned to do the next one. And here she is with her pet ferret in the graveyard. Here she is with her bulldog in the dungeon. And this final one was a woman who actually, these are a portrait of her 2 dogs. That's another thing, I get commissioned to do people's pets a lot, but kind of in cartoon form. So that was, so that's one of the characters. The second one that came out the same time as Vampirina was Horrible Horus. And this is Horrible Horus. And he's this little bratty child who lives in Southern California. And that's why you can see he's in this kind of mid-century, very brightly, tackily colored modern house. And he's a bit of a brat. He's also got this dog who is always worried what's going to happen. He's worried here that he might become the cow, and because he's got the lasso there. And then in this one, he's bundled him up and put him on his backpack so that he can take off. And here he's running away from home here. So I've done about 3 of that guy. Let me just get I have notes because I will not remember any names if I don't. So then after, well, not after, but also one of the things with the kind of what I call the steampunk light phase I went through, I started doing a lot of different vehicles for my characters. And this character, his name is Ivor, and he's a hunchback artist. And I always try and pick the outsiders, something that I can relate to myself, kind of an outsider character. And so this guy is in this machine that I call Deus Ex Machina. And if you know anything about Greek myths or old theater, the Deus Machina was actually literally meant God in a machine. So they would write these very complicated plots where people were in danger all the time. And then rather than actually writing a plot that they could solve, they would, when they could come to the end and the hero was going to die, they would just suddenly out of the sky would drop the Deus Machina, and God would say, "Hero, because you are a fine young man, I am going to save your life." And so I like that idea of someone coming down and saving our lives. You know, how many times it would be very convenient to have a Deus Machina today coming down. This one is called the Ineffectual Umbrella. And that gives you a little sense of my sense of humor. I love the idea of this umbrella that's purely ornamental and does nothing to stop them from getting wet. And the idea behind this was this guy's a complete art snob. He and his wife are on the way to the gallery. The car seat is made out of a frame, like a picture frame. And if you look at the dash ornament is a Brancusi sculpture. So he's just a little art snob who's not terribly practical. So there you go. I sometimes would like to be an art snob, but my practical side always kind of pops in and takes over. Then this is another one, which is called Creature Comforts. And I just like the concept of futility, because this is a blind woman who has a reading lamp, which she clearly can't see because she's blind. But anyways, again, my sense of humor. And then this one is called Broom Powered. And again, we got the cats because I love them, and I do love a good witch. And I also, I'm sorry, this is also called Auntie Griselda. And then also I have, this is called Sir Drags a Lot, and kind of a drag racing vampire. I have a love for kind of the old creepy monsters like the Munster family and the Addams family. And then finally, one is called Tobolano Bust. And again, it was using the using a little bit of the steampunk light. I like all of the brass fixtures and all the silly equipment that he needs. And he's, if you look closely, you can see he's cleaning out his socks and drying them as he flies along. He's got some extra bagels in case he gets hungry, and he's brought along a teapot. So he's very practical here, but he's playing music as well. So as I was doing these, the one in particular became very popular for the character, and that is the next one I'm showing you. And this is called Death Takes a Holiday. And for some reason, Death is a character that I created that people seem to love this character. And the idea behind Death is he is this very reluctant Grim Reaper whose job is to collect people when they die, but he does not want to do it. So he's always trying to hide from it, and he's running away. And this is him going on vacation to avoid having to take another soul. And that's his pet raven, who eventually will get named, which you will see. So again, I wanted it to look kind of steampunk and a little time machine looking. And also I wanted it to look a lot like a funeral hearse. So then he got a balloon, and this is called Death Descends. And this one, I was inspired by a very funny gag from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. If you ever look at the characters, the bad character from that, Baron Bombast has a flying zeppelin that has very similar colors and design. And now I started introducing the rats because I figured, you know, where death goes, these rats must be following behind. Oops. And this is called Death Trap. And basically he's drag racing in Death Valley. And then this goes way back. One of the first images I did of him was a digital painting, and someone saw it online and they said, why didn't you paint that one? So I decided I would do this painting for someone who wanted to commission that. So anyways, that's a more traditional, I think it's because it was just traditional. It didn't appeal to me as being out there, but I liked it well enough to paint it, so that was fun. And then this is Death in the Underworld. And I wanted to, way before the pandemic, I was doing these little characters in the front, which are from the Black Plague times. So it's kind of fitting for these days. But the idea behind this one is that this woman is being taken to the underworld, and she says, "I will play you a game of chess, and if I win, I get to keep my life." And on their way to the underworld, she loses the game, as you can see, and she's now a skeleton. Okay, this one is called Cheating Death, and the middle character is based on my friend Maureen, who has to wear like 3 pairs of reading glasses when she's, one for close up, one for medium, one for far, and rather than get bifocals or trifocals. So I thought I'm going to make fun of her here, because this, I think, is a very funny look with 3 glasses on her head. And they're all cheating. They're trying to win the game from death, but in the end, I don't think they're going to win. This is a play on words, because I love puns, and this is called Death Pool, in tribute to Deadpool. Also, I think I was in LA when I came up with this idea, and even though everyone thinks of LA as sunshine and vacation, I was beginning to have a great deal of dread about being there. And so I just like the idea of Death enjoying his pool. And this is Death and the Maiden, which is a very traditional subject, but done in my way. And then this is where I finally named the Raven, and his name is Taxes. And this is what the inevitable death and taxes together. And also one of my collectors, who has the largest collection of my death paintings, loves lighthouses. So I thought it would be hilarious if Death collected lighthouses also. Very unexpected. This is called Death on the Rocks. That's kind of a tribute to Edward Gorey. There's a famous Edward Gorey picture of Death with a umbrella and a hat like that. So this is when I came to Chicago Art Institute for the first time, I was shocked to find out that one of my favorite painters, Ivan Albright, is from Chicago, and they had a huge collection of him. And they were also having a big show of his work when I was there. And I was researching him because I was doing a painting for a show on Frankenstein. And he did, if you don't know who he is, an amazing painter. He did the painting of Dorian Gray for the movie, The Picture of Dorian Gray. And in the movie, it's a black and white movie, and everything else is black and white. But when they show his painting of Dorian Gray turning old, it's in full color, and it's supposed to be the big shocking reveal. And so when I came, I found this painting, which is truly incredible in person. He was so obsessive about painting that he would spend months going over the same piece over and over again till the paint became very three-dimensional. And I saw this and I thought, I'm sure he wants you to think who's coming to the door, because he's got the hand. But I thought, well, whose door is it? So I did the answer to this painting. It's Death's door, because, who else would live there in this decrepit house? So there's Death and Taxes, and one of the rats welcoming you. I have an obsession with death in my art anyways, because I feel like in America, we have a very bad culture about death. We feel like if we do enough exercise and eat right, we can avoid it. But in other cultures where they realize that it's an inevitable thing, they embrace it more. And so I love the Mexican tradition of Dios de la Muerte, and the idea of celebrating our ancestors and and not being so afraid about death, but just embracing it more. And my dad died when I was fairly young. I was in my 30s, and since he was really a huge influence on me as far as artistically, I'm always paying tribute to him in my paintings, and you'll find that whenever there's a butterfly, that directly relates to my dad. It's an old family story about this butterfly that first of all, my sister always tells the story that after my dad died, whenever she thought of him, a butterfly would appear, and physically, a real butterfly would appear. And we were, at my wedding, we had my family, my extended family, and my husband's family all sitting on our back deck in California. And my sister was telling this story, and in the middle of the story, everyone was perfectly quiet, and suddenly a butterfly flew into the middle of the deck and through the crowd. And there was a dead silence, and then everyone started saying, "Hi, Dad, hi, Dad." So that's our symbol for Dad. And at a certain point of painting a lot of kind of comic stuff, I really wanted to find another way of showing my more serious thoughts. I feel like the cartoon characters are more about my look at life, like my sense of humor towards life. I often compare them to like the New Yorker magazine, where the cover always has kind of an ironic look at life. And what I wanted was something that was more about how I felt about life and about my own spiritual journey in life. So I started exploring those ideas. I don't have a lot, but I'm going to show you some. So there's some people who know me just for the cartoons, and then there's the others who know me just for my more spiritual work. And so Tobolano became a little bit more, I don't know, maybe classy. Maybe I was being an art snob. But this is the beginning of that phase. And I basically feel like if you're going to do a big painting, put a lot in it so that people have things to look at. And so there's lots of imagery and lots of symbolism. But this one is called Et in Arcadia Ego. And if you haven't heard that term before, it's a Latin term, which literally means there go I, but it's referring to, and I'll show you, it's been painted many times. This is an old painting of Et in Arcadia Ego. And basically Arcadia is considered to be like a paradise. And and you can see written underneath the skull, Et in Arcadia Ego. And the idea behind it, that is, even in paradise goes death. So even in, Wonderland or Tobolano or wherever, death will follow you. And this was a popular time period when they were doing a lot of skulls and paintings to remind us that everything is temporary and nothing lasts forever. So anyway, this is just one of these paintings. This one's done by, I think I wrote that down, Guercino in 1622. But I like that concept. And so here you see that she's kind of like a Hindi goddess, and she's got luck and she's got money and she's got all these things going on. But then in the bubble above her finger, you see the skeleton smoking a cigarette, of course. It'll get you there faster. So there's my little tribute to art history there. And here's another one. Eventually I did one of these for the Disney company. Now this got rejected by them for many stupid reasons that I will share with you, but it still sold very quickly, so I don't care. First of all, they said Snow White never cries. She's a happy princess. I'm like, okay. And then secondly, they didn't like that the dwarfs look like morons, and that and thirdly, and this was the worst for them, was in very big capital letters, they said, "We will never have anything inside of one of our princesses' skirts." especially 7 little men. So anyways, that was their problem with this Snow White. Anyways, I have been asked many times to do work with them, and I just hate corporate mentality, and that really was one that made me not want to work with them. I also did one of the Muppets for them, which I very much enjoyed, but I haven't done any since then. All right, this was called Pussycat, Pussycat, I Love You. And this came at a time when it was still illegal for myself and my husband to get married. So we decided that we would have our own marriage, whether it was legal or not, and invite our family. And it was, so this is using the skirt as a stage. I wanted to show that our little bubble of happiness, while on the outside world there's this sadness and also the kind of comedy and drama of the real world, and the snow and the coldness of the world. But eventually it became legal for us to get married, and I did do a sequel painting which is called My Funny Valentine, but that's not here. But anyways, the little cats usually refer to us as a couple. This one was a show called Undertow, and it was all using the symbolism of the undersea world to explore different feelings that I was having. And this one's like a very spiritual painting, but it's called the Kraken. And if you know anything about the Kraken, it's a horrible monster. And I like the concept, because when you think of jellyfish, there are these really beautiful, beautiful animals that, I guess you can call them animals, that you cannot touch, because if you do, you get stung. So I like this idea of like, and I did a lot of paintings of sirens in the show. The siren is the beautiful kind of mermaid-like character who seduces you into the underworld so that she can drown you and keep you there forever. So this is, and also if you know the famous fish that has the little light hanging from his, from the front of his head to kind of lure you in and mesmerize you. So I like the idea of how beauty can suck you in and put you in in a difficult situation. I was thinking at the time a lot also about how the internet became like a rabbit hole, where you go in there, you think, I'm just going to go in and do my emails and then I'm leaving. And then suddenly one of the emails leads you to Facebook and you're like, oh, I'm just going to look at Facebook for 2 minutes. And then, oh, Facebook sent you to YouTube. And then, an hour and a half later, you realize, I don't remember why I came here. And so there's that kind of temptation when everything is at your fingertips to just keep going and going deeper into the rabbit hole. So anyway, so that was all about the temptations of beauty. This one was my largest painting to date, and this one is like 5 feet by 4 feet, and it's called Madonna Muerte. And I dreamt, and actually I didn't say this before, but when I first started, I dreamt a lot of the imagery that I would end up painting. And I had a sketchbook next to my bed, and I would write down notes or little images that came to me while I was sleeping. Well, this one, I have no idea. Out of the blue, I saw a banner that said "Love Conquers Death." I don't know why, but that was in my mind. And I went on the internet and I found that there was a very famous sculpture, and it was a kind of a relief, a bar relief. And on the bottom it said "Love Conquers Death." And I, on the internet, I just, I literally typed in "Love Conquers Death" banner, and then that came up. So that came from that. But again, you'll see there's the butterflies in there. And I use the butterflies to remind ourselves that we're not alone in the world, even after our relatives have died and left us. they're still with us. There's still remnants of that. So I really much believe in that when I go into my studio, I can feel my dad breathing down my shoulder. I know that there's people there supporting me and helping me to do my thing. So this one is just chock full of images about love and death. And I'm a big Alice in Wonderland fan, so you'll see that's why there's a rabbit head there, and just a whole lot of other stuff going on. And then this one is called Gaia. And I really love these 18th century etchings where they have all of these acanthus leaves and all these beautiful things going on. And so I used an old etching and then started adding my own little messages into it. But I love the idea of that kind of, people worry about destroying the world. But the thing is, we're going to, Mother Nature's going to survive. We might not survive because of what we do to her, but she will survive. And so this idea that she's kind of getting pissed off, and there's some smog and things going on, and she is still working for us full time. So anyways, that's Gaia. And then this one was called Spirit. And this again related directly to the ancestry and the butterfly in the center. Also, I do a lot of images, not that I've shown them here, but I do a lot of people in fetal positions. You can see a little fetus there, because the concept of birth and rebirth and the idea that we're constantly being reborn because we have a chance to redeem ourselves, or we have a chance to change who we are, to better ourselves. And every time we do that, we're being supported, I think. And I believe that that there is a creative God that is overseeing all of this creation, and that God supports creativity. So that was my big message about creativity and also ancestry. All right. Oh, so now what I want to do is I'm going to show you some process. So unless you have any questions about the past stuff, I'm now going to take you through 4 little paintings and explain to you some process of this. So this year I got the chance to do the cover of Peoria magazine. And when I was working with May and Jonathan, May said, we would love you to illustrate the cover to go with the story we're going to write. And I said, oh, I've got an idea for that. And I did this really quick scribble. In my neighborhood, we were walking one day during the lockdown, and I saw my friends, the Grubers, who have 2 adorable children, and they had all of these hearts cut out and hung in their window. And I said, what is that? I didn't understand. And then more and more of them kept showing up. So since I don't have children, it didn't mean anything to me. And I looked it up, and I had read that they started doing this as a way of showing the people who saw them to feel hope. And I love that idea of that, these poor kids who are trapped inside, they have, no say in the matter. They're not going to school anymore. Suddenly their whole lives have been turned upside down, and they are sending out messages of hope. That was a very sweet thing to me. So I call this City of Hope, and it started with this little sketch. And May said, oh, I love that. Can you show me pictures along the way? So we can put that on our website. And now I love process shots, because if you mess up on something, it's great to be able to go back and go, oh, that's where I went wrong. I need to get that back. So I take pictures of and this one I especially took a lot of shots. So the next thing I did was I did a drawing, and you'll see the drawing is the boy and the dog. And then I put the boy and the dog into Photoshop, and I gave them the darks and the lights in Photoshop. You can use Photoshop as a painting medium. So then I cut out some curtains from photographs, and I cut out this window that was a photograph also. And the Peoria was a button that someone actually gave me when I moved here. So I wanted to use that as kind of the logo for Peoria. And then in the back, you see the little Victorian house, because I live on Moss Avenue. I wanted to have that kind of cartoony version, because one of the things I really love about Moss Avenue and why I moved here was these beautiful preserved historical homes. So that was my first step. And so we kept moving forward. So the next thing I would do is print that out. And then I work on wood panels sometimes for small pieces. Wood has a really great texture, and I gesso it, but I also do this is like a medium toned, they call it Titan buff, but it's kind of like a beige tone. And when you're working in acrylic, I work in acrylic and oil. And when you work in acrylic, it's the opposite of oil. You're supposed to work thin over fat. So that basically means that your first layer of acrylic should not be a wash, because literally there won't be enough molecules in the paint to hold on to the surface, and it could cause chipping of paint. In oil paint, it's the other way around. You do a thick over thin. But anyway, so this is my thick layer. And then this tracing is, I use something called surreal transfer paper, and I tape it to the top. I put the transfer paper under the image and then trace it with a pen. And this is how it looks. They have transfer paper comes in different colors, but this is the black one, which is kind of messy, and I don't like using it. If it's a darker color, you can use the white one. So anyways, that's it traced down. And then I believe the pencil is me correcting it. Now the next step I do, and I learned this from illustration, is to do either a black or a brown line over all of the line work. That way, when you start doing layers of color, the line will keep coming back and you won't lose your original line work, because certain things you want to be accurate and to end in the right place. So then I did a wash of brown. And just so you know, part of the modern artist is also being a social media magnet, which is not really one of my favorite things, but it's kind of fun once you know the game. And one of those things is, when you show process, there are a lot of people out there who like to follow that, but also there are brush companies who make certain brushes. So you make sure that a number of your paintings have pictures of brushes in them. So I can say, oh, my friends at Trekell provided these brushes. Anyways, it's just an ongoing, constant reminder to remember that you're connected to the world. So that's just it's just a burnt umber, watered down wash over the top. Then I start doing highlights and medium tones. And again, it's just working up the acrylic paint and I use an off-white, which is the one called Titan Buff. And then these are like a liquid acrylic. So I'm trying to create the form, and it's kind of old school, but I'd like to get the form down in brown and white before I start adding color. So here's just tying it down a little bit more. And then, okay, there's a big jump. So I probably tighten it up a bit more than this, but at some point I start glazing in color over the top of that. Now I have a thing about, I want to make sure that the character is working. So I always kind of spend a lot of time on the central character and make sure I have someone that I can look at and know that it's going to work out in the end. So I do tend to focus on that, whereas I should be painting just the background at this point. So here is refined background, and there it is as a magazine background. So, and I think I changed some of the colors for the magazine in Photoshop just because I thought they would read better. So that's the City of Hope. Now the next thing I was going to talk about was, So when I had been painting for years and years, but I had never formally gone after like what would I be if I was a gallery artist. So when I started to approach that, you know, people always say paint what you know, and that's a hard thing to explain. But I think it's what you really need to do is find out who you are, because the only thing original out there is what you bring to the world, your point of view, that hasn't been said before. Um, Everything else has been done. So one of the things in getting to know myself, which is seriously an important part of it, you think about all the things that you grew up with. Now, this picture is of Vermeer. And when I was a child, my parents very kindly bought us the Encyclopedia World Book. And they were A through Z. And of course, when I saw those books, I went right to P because I wanted to see the painting section. And this was the cover of the painting section, Vermeer. So I, at a very young age, was very much taken by Vermeer and his lighting. So another thing, when I was a child, and I stupidly said, I'm bored one day, my mother said, how can you be bored when there's so many books in the world to read? And so because of her, I became an avid book reader. And one of my favorite books as a child was Alice in Wonderland. And my favorite character was the Mad Duchess, which always bugged me because she's not in the Walt Disney movie. There was something about this book, and if you ever read this book, it's really not so much a children's book, it's more of a nonsense book, and there's a lot of crazy character going on in here and saying a lot of interesting things. And so I love this book, and I used to read it at least once a year. The nonsense in it and the craziness was always fantastic. So I decided in 2008, when I was going to do my first attempt at gallery painting, that I was going to do Alice in Wonderland, because Alice in Wonderland is very popular with a lot of artists, and it's a perfect kind of pop surreal imagery. And so I started to come up with what was my idea for this. So I decided that I was going to use this Vermeer painting as the reference point. I wanted it to have, I like the idea of taking a fairly cartoony character and then giving it lots of more meaning by giving it, you know, a serious lighting and certain depth. And then this was this doll here with the red hair was a doll that I had found at an antique store. And I was attracted to her because she was from the 60s and I grew up in the 60s. And also that she looked like a Margaret Keane painting, who's the painting on the right there. And if you didn't grow up in that time period, you'd know as a kid, they were everywhere. They were on everyone's walls. I love those little girls with the big eyes. And so I thought, well, this is going to be my model. I'm going to make her my Alice in Wonderland. So that was my attempt at doing kind of a pulp culture, but also using my own personal reference. So I did a bunch of sketches of the doll, turning her around to try and see what she would look like as Alice. And then I had to figure out what my take on the Duchess was going to be. So here you see the Duchess and the cook, and I was just playing. I wanted it to be, I love the John Tenniel drawing, but I wanted it to be my own take on it. So I played with her, and I kind of thought of her as an ogre, because she's kind of a terrible person. In the story, she's basically sings a song about beating her child. So this was going to be an awful mother character. And then this is a digital painting. I know this is hard to explain, but I painted this all on Photoshop. And I thought that originally I was going to do digital paintings, but then I realized in the end, you're in with just a print. And I missed the physical quality of like what real paint is and the look of canvas and paint. So I had done a bunch of digital paintings. I had been practicing with digital because this is how we worked in animation. I'd done backgrounds and character designs using this. So I decided, no, I knew I really wanted to be on canvas. So then I take this print and photograph it in black and white, and then I traced it onto a 30 by 40 canvas. So I kind of enhanced the drawing because it was faded here. But this is, you can see that early stage where I've basically done a kind of a golden brown wash, and then I'm starting to work up the background because I realize I've got to go really traditional to get the look I want. So here's more of working on the background. I'm building in the background. And you can see that it's kind of the Vermeer windows. You can't see them yet, but the portraits on the back was a caricature I did of Queen Victoria. And on the other side is a caricature of Lewis Carroll, who wrote Alice in Wonderland. So then the other thing is people love patterns. So I decided to go for a really fun pattern on the floor. And that's all hand painted. But once you get the geometry correct, it makes the perspective work really beautifully. Then I added some shadows. And now I did the table, and I wanted the tabletop to be the classic kind of Renaissance tabletop with the oranges, but I decided to give the orange a face, and all of the china has faces in it too. Sorry, it's a blurry picture. So now you can see I worked in the stove on the left. I've got the background pretty much coming along now. I actually started adding in these copper pots on the stovetop to get those all in there. And then I decided to add faces on all of them because, Wonderland should be a little bit wacky. And now I'm working in the cook because she's in the background. And then this is the chairs are in the background. And now I'm starting on the Duchess. And it's just slowly slogging along and rendering and re-rendering things until they get sharper and more in focus. I love doing patterns. So her dress with all of the patterning, which came from the digital painting I did. So continuing working in here, I wanted to make the really bejeweled edging on the dress. Now I'm putting in the kind of velvet overskirt, and then that's her little top piece there with more patterning. And now I've got the baby in there, and there's the cat, the Cheshire Cat, one of my favorite characters. And now I'm going to start doing Alice, who I saved for last because she's in the foreground. And oops, and that's pretty much how it ended right there. If you see on the left, I really changed the windows a lot because after I did it, I thought they were kind of dull. So I went back and I did these stained glass windows of the Cheshire Cat in there. All right, so there you go. That was my first big gallery painting. And I basically spent several years. From 2008 to 2013, I was working a full-time job and also painting these things. So I was trying to get at least 20 or 30 paintings together so that when I went to the galleries, I had something to show them that looked like they went together. Okay, so then this is my last year I was asked to be in a show about Frida Kahlo. And I love Frida Kahlo, especially since she's, one of the great surreal artists, and I do love surrealism. So I wanted to do a picture that honored her, and so one of the first things I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure the portrait I did of her was fairly realistic, and to use her to take it seriously and not be a cartoon or a takeoff. So in this, and you'll see this is the actual canvas. It's 16 by 20. I'm starting to trace the image. This time, the white on the right is the transfer paper was white this time, and I think that people love Frida so much in the art world that they've raised her up to kind of a sainthood. So I wanted her to feel like an old Mexican religious painting. Also, I happen to really love South American religious paintings. So, and the color scheme was based on her famous painting, The Blue House, and also the fact that blue comes up a lot in her work. But if you see this, this is part of those old, you know, in the 18th century, they did a lot of these great graphics. And this one is these two pillars with the angels on the top. And then I called it La Señora del Surrealismo. And that's just Spanish for the lady of surrealism. So there it is, all in black outline. And now I'm going to start rendering. Now this painting, even though it's eventually an oil painting, I started with acrylic painting because it dries faster. So I wanted to work out some of the dimensions in acrylic, and that's just brown and white paint and a little bit of black. So now you can see where I'm starting to work on her face, and it gets a little bit more intense. So I move to oil paints to keep that smooth, and you see the blue flowers, which is going to become a theme. I lay in all this blue in the background because those are going to all become blue flowers. She was so well known for the flowers in her hair. I just wanted to use that as the symbol along with her blue. So building up all the blue flowers in the background. And I usually work from back to front. And then I started filling in the columns. And then when I was done, I had to find the perfect frame, and had to be gold. So there's my final La Señora del Surrealismo. This painting is a funny story, and this is my last one that I want to talk about. So last year, I have this terrific big frame, and I wanted to use it, and I had no idea what I was going to put in it. So I bought a canvas the size of the frame, and I painted it black. And for no reason other than I had no idea what I was doing. So then I thought, well, I know, while I was in the middle of a big commission at the time, you can see the corner of it there, it's a little mermaid on the side, that I was going to start learning how to paint roses better, because I love painting roses. So there you go, my first rose on there. And I decided I'm going to take it slow. I'm going to do these all in black and white and keep it very easy. And then I had two roses. Now you gotta understand, a lot of time went in between these roses because it was whenever I was had free time in between my commission or what other work I was doing. So I just kept adding and adding and adding roses to this piece. So at some point I was thinking, where are we going? What are these roses gonna be? I said, I don't care. It's a good, you know, just practice, just keep practicing. So I had roses. And then I thought, I need to decide what this painting is about. So then I started searching for an idea. And I am often told by the great Cosmos, no, it's not time. Because I thought, babies, that's what it needed. Baby faces in the roses. And I soon realized that was a really bad idea. And I did not like it. So I got rid of the babies. So back to roses, what could be there? So then I decided skeleton man. Hated this idea. I tried everything I could. So finally I just thought, well, maybe it's because the flowers need color. I need to see them in color. So I got rid of him and I started coloring and glazing. Now there's layers and layers of color on glazing on the flowers to give them depth. And then I got to about this stage and I was like, you know what? I think maybe this is just roses. I don't know. And then I had this idea. I had done a painting a few years ago about the Midsummer's Night Dream. And in that painting, there was someone dreaming, and then there were all the fairies from Midsummer's Night Dream. So I thought, oh, this could be like someone's dream. And I decided that I would add a child to it. And I wanted to get that feeling of like a child's dream, and anything can happen in a child's dream, and they're open to all possibilities. So then I started adding in creepy little characters, and you see there's a fairy, and there's a little elf there, some more elves, a little ogre. I added a frog because I love frogs, and smoking a pipe. And soon enough, I had goblins and I had mice, and this thing started filling up. So this, and you see those little rose, I had little Xerox printouts of pictures of roses for reference. I just kept going. I kept adding and adding. And then I wanted to make sure I got nature in there. So I got a bird and butterfly. And then I added these little horrible imps, the little green characters on the side. And there's a little fairy there. And I just kept building it up. And then I did a big fairy and a chipmunk and another imp. And then finally I added in a rabbit and some more flowers. And so the whole point of this painting, and this is a painting that's my central painting that I have in my show at Exhibit A right now in Peoria Heights. It just goes to show you that you don't know sometimes. Sometimes you plan everything to the nth degree, have everything, drawn out ahead of time, and then other times you just go by the seat of your pants, and it takes longer. This painting took me like 13 months to get it done. So, and there's the frame, right? So I needed something good for that frame. It was a good frame. So I'm going to just leave these on here, and if you have any specific questions about any of them, I will take questions now.
Yep, so you can unmute yourself to ask questions, or you can type them into the chat box, and I will ask your question for you. I do have, oh, it looks like Curtis, you have a question?
Yes, Bob, could you tell me what kind of canvas you prefer to use?
A number of different things. Nowadays, I find most canvas is really cheap. So I try and always buy the highest quality one that I can, because some of the cheaper kind are not stretched really tight. I like to use a portrait grade though, because that's a finer weave to it. Mm-hmm. So I tried linen and I did not like it at all. I don't know why. I know people who swear by it, but I just didn't like it. So I do that, and then I'm really been getting into wood panel lately.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Don't be shy.
I know I have a few questions. My question is, you mentioned that one of your paintings was about 5 foot. What's the average size of your paintings?
Well, the reality of it is most people don't have room for 5 foot paintings in their house. Mm-hmm. So I tend to do a lot of small work. And a lot of my work is under, this one you're looking at right now is 24 by 36. So that's a fairly large painting for most people. My best-selling larger size is 16 by 20, which is not a very big painting, but like most people don't want to take up more space than that. So it's kind of it's typical. The painter's dream is always to paint bigger, 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 but everyone's reality is that they only really have room for a certain size in their house or whatever.
That's very true. There is a question in the comments from Heather. Are you working on anything currently?
I am. I'm in the middle of a commission that I'm doing for a lady in California who's collected quite a few of my pieces. And I'm about halfway through that one. And also I'm planning next year, like what I'm going to be doing for next year.
Hey Bob, it's Chris Daniels. I have a question. I love, obviously, I love all your characters, but all your faces of your characters are different. How do you come to create one of those characters and make it look different? I mean, you mentioned in your dreams, but is do the faces come in your dreams as well, or is it something you research, or do you have something in mind when you're thinking of a new character?
I think a lot of that comes from character design. After years and years of that, for me, it's like once I get the story in my mind, I try to like imagine that I'm that character. And then I usually end up doing a lot of little, really small sketches in my sketchbook. But usually it's when I think that there's technical painting out there that's way more technical than mine that doesn't have any heart in it. And I think that there's painting, if you put heart in it, that's gonna go a lot longer. Or, well, basically it's what I feel confident about is, you know, like putting your feelings into that. So these characters, yeah, I do a little research. I look at a lot of images, but it's basically a kind of feeling that I have about them. Like, you know, as a designer, you tend to take your years of history of things you've done before, you know, people you've met over the years and go, oh, that reminds me of so-and-so. So it's like an acting job for me. So the characters are one of my favorite things about the piece. But thank you.
May I ask a question of Bob?
Sure.
Bob, your pieces have so much detail. It's almost like, you know, they're telling a story, a book. Have you ever had a period where the periphery of the paintings did not have all that detail, where you just work more on that center of our gaze?
Yes, I do, but I have to say it's mostly insecurity that keeps me away from that. I love to paint, you know, like very simple, you know, portraits. Actually, I mean, I've done some in my recent show. I have some fairly simple things. I feel like in my mind, I'm like, oh, no one's going to like this. I have a little needy side to me of wanting to be liked. So I tend to throw in the kitchen sink to make sure that I get as many people, you know, please as many people as possible. Also, I had a show early on where I had done this painting of this girl, and there were all these flowers, and they all had, the flowers looked like people, and you could see people in them. And I watched the people at the gallery, like counting how many faces they could find. And I like that idea that something doesn't just have one viewing, that, you know, like you can live with it and you can take time and try and figure out. To me, it's as important what the viewer thinks of something as it is what I think of it, because I want the person living with the painting, you know, to create their story, their own stories in their mind.
Okay, we do have 2 questions from the comment section. So Carol asks, so many of the pieces looked as though they were finished and yet you continued. What tells you precisely when to stop?
That's a good question. It's very hard to know when to stop. Again, it comes from insecurity, you know, like I want to make sure that it's as good as it possibly can be. And there's sometimes when you go too far and things can deaden, and then you have to go back and fix it. Someone once, I can't remember who this quote came from, but they were saying it's the only field where when someone says to you, it doesn't look spontaneous enough. And to make it look spontaneous, you have to go back and overwork it. You know, it's like, it's a ridiculous thing. Because it takes years of practice to believe in what you're doing to let something truly be spontaneous.
And then the other question was, do you teach painting or process?
I have. I'm not a great teacher. I will tell you that up front, because I'm not the kind who knows the name of every brush and every color. I'm much more, you know, like touchy-feely about it. So most of the people that I had as students get a real kind of one-on-one, me trying to figure out what is it you want to do and how can I help you to be the best you. So yeah, I have done that. Not terribly well.
I'm sure your students learned a lot from you. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Hi, Bob. This is Jean.
Hi, Jean.
I love the detail of your painting, as was expressed by some of the other participants here. But I must say, when I look at the eyes of your characters, they almost take a photographic quality. Do you deliberately or focus on the eyes and how expressive they become? Is it a particular love of yours with that, or what creates that quality above all the other portions of an otherwise beautiful painting?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I just think that the eyes express so much. You know, they really. I hate to bring out the old trope of the window to the soul thing, but I think more than that, it's like when we communicate with people, we look in their eyes to feel something. I was saying to a friend of mine, I think one of the worst things about the pandemic has been I don't know who I am because I can't see myself reflected in my friend's eyes. I know that when I see someone and the look in their eyes or the smile on their face, that is how I know I'm doing okay as a human, you know, that connection we make. So I think that you have to put that kind of love and expression into the eyes. So yeah, I do spend a lot of time trying to make pretty eyes as well. I think part of that is, you know, artists like to show off, and the eye can be a very pretty, reflective part of the painting. So we like to show off.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, there are a few more questions from the comment section. From Carla, do you have any idea of how many paintings you've done?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. The answer is probably no. It might be up there in the thousands because I did it as a job also. I used to be a background painter in animation, so it's been going for a long time. I still have cousins of mine contacting me all the time saying, hey, do you remember when you painted my mother for her 60th birthday? I'm like, no. So things like that. Yeah, when I was a kid, my dad constantly was like setting me up, you know, with the relatives to paint pictures. I painted a lot of babies in my time and a lot of pastel drawings of children. So I can't really say. I know it's a lot. It's many hundreds.
That is a lot. The other question I have is, do you change your subject matter slowly, or do you just throw stuff out there?
It's a weird kind of thing that happens if you look at like your year, and I do because I like to really process how things worked out. Sometimes you'll do a painting that feels out of place with everything else that you're doing, and it's usually a window into the future. It's usually like your future vision is starting to form, and when you go back and or after arriving at that place, you suddenly go, oh, that's what I was thinking. That didn't work when I first did it because it didn't fit in. There is a gradual process. There's a crazy thing about ideas. They're all out there for you if you believe they are, and they will present themselves when they need to. But I'm impatient sometimes. I want to be better all the time. I want to be, you know, get there as fast as possible. And, you know, like you kind of rush to do that, but it's just a matter of being patient, and things slowly evolve, I think, more than anything.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Bob, I do have another question. I've noticed, especially recently, how many styles you have of your signature. Sometimes it's just the letter D, sometimes it's printed, sometimes it's written. Is there a method to your madness?
Well, you know, because you've been there from the beginning practically. But the early look I had was very kind of more straight and more stiff, I think. I was trying to go for that kind of Norman Rockwell-y look originally. And I had that down, as you know, and there was many, many paintings that had that. And then what happened was I looked at it one day and I thought, it's not feeling like how I'm feeling. It didn't feel whimsical and it didn't feel expressive. And so I wanted to do something that was less rigid and less, traditional. And so I started playing with Ds, and I've done like a bunch of different Ds. And my small paintings I sign with a D. And and if it's a creepy, Halloween picture, I can push that and make it even, more creepy feeling. Or if it's elegant, I can make it more rounded and, more kind of scripty feeling. But yeah, I switched over to that just because of the expressive quality of it. Thank you.
But I'm just enjoying the evolution of who you were becoming as a commercial artist here.
Well, thank you, Jean.
Are you still maintaining an online catalog of your works that we could view?
I have, that's an interesting question, an inside question. Yeah, I still have my blog spot that has, it's called Bob for Gallerist at blogspot.com. That's where you can see everything that's available, everything that's sold, things that were in circulation. If you want to look that up.
Bob, that's something, if you email myself or Heather, we can send that out in the description on YouTube.
All right, I will do that.
We can give you some more advertisements through Art Club. Does anyone else have any other questions? If not, then I will go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending Art Club today. And a big thank you to Bob for giving us such a wonderful, inspiring look at his work over the years of many, many, many paintings. If you liked Art Club, please join us next month, Tuesday, November 10th at 1 p.m. We are going to host another artist next month. And I'd also like to thank our museum members, Visionary Society members, for their continued support of our virtual programming. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye. Good to see you all. Bye-bye.